Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, joining us tonight, depending on the time zone you're in. We're really glad you're going to spend some time and practice time with us. My name is Staci Haines, and I have been connected with Strozzi Institute for a very long time, 20 plus years. I'm a senior teacher in the methodology, and then I'm also the co-founder of Generative Somatics that brings this same work into social change work.
Hello, I'm Richard Strozzi-Heckler. I'm the founder of Strozzi Institute. I've been doing this work well over 45 years now. We came aboard Strozzi Institute 25 years ago. So we've been partnering and putting this out in the world for some time now.
So our theme tonight of our practice and this session is called Meeting the Moment. And it's really about how do we, in many ways, use the kind of opening and disruption that we're in for purposeful transformation, and to really look at like what's happening in us and what can we cultivate or what can we practice on purpose. So again, thank you for joining us. We do have folks from all over the world with us, and I just want to welcome you all. So there's folks from Vermont, from Brooklyn, from Oakland. We have folks from Ghana and Ethiopia. Folks are here from Mexico. I'm just watching it in the chat. Thanks for putting in where you're from. Canada, Central America. Anyway, welcome. Welcome. Really happy to have you here. On the tech questions, if you have any technical questions, just put them in the chat. And then one of our support folks will chat with you privately and get that worked out. And for the next basically 50 minutes, we'll be talking about some of the core distinctions inside of embodied transformation and embodied leadership. We'll get to practice together. We're actually going to do a little writing exercise. So if you still write with a pen or a pencil, have one close by. And then just get to chat and interact and really address this moment together. So before we get in, do you want to do something on helping us get here?
I think that'd be a good idea. Why don't we all just take a moment and really settle into ourselves? There's so much happening in the world now, as you all know, and are affected by. And it's useful always to do this check-in of really let's relax our eyes, come behind our eyes, come out of all this chatter that's going on, the galloping mind. Let the jaw relax, both at the hinge and at the chin. Tongues relaxed. And if we all take a deep breath together, raise our shoulders up, out breath, and dropping down, feeling your sit bones on the chair, being inside of your back where we can rest back into ourselves as we continue.
Thank you. That was nice. All right, so we want to start with talking about the moment that we're in. And, I've been reflecting a lot. This is in my many decades, this is the largest global challenge pandemic in my lifetime. It's every continent, it's peoples everywhere. I am just really struck with what we're going through collectively, what we're going through together. In this time, as you all know, many folks are struggling around employment and finances. Many folks are struggling with anxiety, a lot of unknown, fear inside of the unknown. There's so much collective disruption. It's like our standard days for most of us and how we're used to spending our days or how we're used to being with our community or our families is disrupted. And it's just creating a lot. Those of us who are still in shelter in place, right? Many of us have either been alone for weeks on end or with the same very few people for weeks on end, which can be wonderful and also can be challenging. And then also, as you all know, in this time, not all people are impacted in the same way. Those who are essential workers are really at much higher risk than those of us who can kind of live and work on Zoom. Folks who are undocumented or don't have access to state support can really be on a precarious edge around housing, around food, around transportation. And then the risk levels, different communities are getting impacted really differently. And I think, at least in the United States, there's a really different illness and death rate within the Black community and within the Indigenous communities in this country. And it just is a time where kind of many things are laid bare while we're all simultaneously at risk. And we just wanted to acknowledge that first as the what is and what we're all working with, and also acknowledge what it's been like for all of us. So I know we've been working with a lot of people over this time, and feel free to add into the chat or raise your hand, but it's like, how many people have been dealing with a higher level of anxiety than usual? You know, I'll raise my hand on that one. How many folks are dealing with a sense of helplessness or powerlessness? How many folks have fear about the current time and getting sick, or fear about the future? I think many of us, exactly, yeah, you can keep raising your hands, that's great. Many of us have experienced loss in this time, like loss of someone close or loss of someone in our wider community. Exactly, so the thumbs up, the raising of hands, it is quite a time for all of us. So I just wanted to take a minute, and we want to take a minute to just acknowledge how natural it is to feel afraid right now, how understandable it is to be very unsettled by the level of unknown and the break in habit. And also through this time and through this conversation and practice today, to go, is there a way that we can move from kind of whatever our reaction is to what's happening, to getting ourselves to a more centered state, which we'll talk about, and even to the possibility of using this time as a time of reflection as to what do we care about, how do we want to be, a time of going, wow, what are the openings toward maybe a different future than maybe the habitual wheel we've been on. You know, I know it's interrupted a lot of our work, and a lot of people have said, wow, I'm going slower and I'm having actually a different quality of time than I had before. So what are also the opportunities to be purposeful in this time? We'll dig in there together. As we head into this call, I also want to talk a little bit about what's embodied transformation, what's embodied leadership. And we call it embodied leadership because we see leadership in a little bit different way. We really hold that leaders are people who are purposefully designing their lives. Purposefully, whether in our families, in our work, or for our broader communities, really asking the questions of what kind of future do I want to help build? What kind of person or leader do I want to be? What are the quality of relationships or impact that I want to have? So when we look at leadership, we're defining it really in that wide scope. So inside somatics is a methodology, an approach to really help us transform in a way where we can act in alignment with our values and our visions, even when we're under pressure. And this time is such a study of pressure. It's such a study of like, whoa, what do we do under sustained pressure? Somatics really uses somatic awareness. So how we listen to and learn to feel ourselves from the inside out, and really work with the information that we get through our bodies or through our mind bodies. Somatics works with somatic opening, which is a process of uprooting old habits or even survival strategies with and through the body, right? Those that are lodged in our tissues, which I'll talk more about, lodged in our neuronal pathways. Somatic opening is how do we kind of uproot those so we can plant new things. And then the third part of embodied transformation is really practice. How do we purposefully practice toward, right? Practice with a broader vision in mind, with a broader what we call for sake of what in mind. So our practice is aligned with who we want to be. And then all of that, and again, this is so obvious in our time, but all of that is really in the context of really our social sphere or our social norms, right? We're impacted by much broader circles than just our individual lives or our family lives. So how do we take into perspective that social context? So as we dive in here, we'll talk more about each of those, but we'll say mind, body. We don't really just say body because we tend to have a fairly objectified view of the body, like it's a thing that goes around to a meeting or it's a thing we take to the doctor, rather than we're an embodied self. which is more how somatics looks at really who we are and also how we change. So we're getting started. We got a little present. We really talked about this moment and the multiple levels, the complex feelings in this time. And then also just getting into an orientation of what's embodied change. And with that, can I hand it over to you?
To look at how we move from reaction to choice, it's really critical that we begin to see when we are actually in reaction. And especially in times like this, which is so pervasive in so many different domains, that we'll start to normalize the reaction. We'll normalize the panic, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the helplessness. We may be able to say it, but it's just this common ground that we're all living in. And that's important because if we don't see that and actually experience it, there will be nothing that will have us go towards choice or go towards responsiveness. What we call here is being centered. And being centered is being present to yourself, to others, to the environment, being open to greater possibilities. So you're not just squeezed into kind of a claustrophobic lane about, I just got to survive here. And also to be deeply, deeply connected to what matters to you. What do you care about? Keep purpose and care and those deep ethical, moral, and values that you have. And if you have a human nervous system, which we all have, one of the things that we've been practicing for our entire lives and was really set in deep roots from about birth to about 9 years old is that we have a deep, deep looking out for, are we safe? Are we secure? In this moment, that could be seen as, are we healthy? Are we going to have a full life? We have a radar out for, do I belong? Am I connected? We are social animals. Will I be loved? And is there somebody that I can give love to? And I can come into the tribe, into the family, into the unit, the department, and going, no, this is my place of being here, the place of belonging. And we're also have a radar out for not only safety and belonging, but a radar out for, do I have value? Do people see me as having merit? In other words, dignity. And do I hold my own dignity? And when we're under pressure, the practices and strategies that we've had to be safe, dignified, and connected will come to the surface. Why is that? Because that's what we've been training. That's what we've been training. In moments of pressure or threat, either real or perceived, and we have very real threats right now that are coming at us, is we'll rise only to our level of training, only to our level of practice. It's just how this system works for all of us. So that working somatically, we're able to feel inside of our bodies what that's actually like, this notion of being grabbed by something or triggered by something, or how's my health, how's my job status, are my children going to be healthy, how do I educate them at home? You're all in this, we're all in this together right now, is that we call that our conditioned tendencies. And this is something that psychology and Western philosophy has noted for a long time, that we are our history. You begin to see the human being in a particular way, and you can see history in all of our bodies, in all of our mind bodies, our longing for a great future, our wounds, our commitments, how we envision or build a narrative that was very inclusive, make boundaries, etc. If you're familiar, fight, flight, freeze, way back to Darwin, disassociate. We move towards people under pressure, we move away from people, or we go against people. These are all elements in which we have a long history with. Let me ask you to join me in this story for a moment. And let's say this is a young boy, and he might be 5 or 6, And he spends time with his father, who does woodworking, and he works on machines. And he has this kind of innate admiration for his father to be around him. And the habit that he gets into is the father won't be really deeply acknowledging of him and what he's doing as he's just learning these things, but really leaning into the piece of, why'd you do that? No, that's not right. It's always the no, not right. And all the way from, he would then go into, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you ever do it that way? And that starts to get to be permeated throughout his whole life. In other words, there's something wrong with you because you can't do these things right. You can't follow directions. You're not doing ABC, 1, 2, 3. Fast forward. This is the man, the adult man, who he has a hard time making eye contact. If I make eye contact, I may be really seen. If I'm seen, I'm a profile for attack. This is the man who is very adverse to taking risks. He's taking any kind of risk, all of a sudden, this deep, deep sense of shame and not having any merit or value to himself will come up. This is the man that may have a body that the shoulders are rounded. I'm rounding my shoulders now. I'm caving in my chest and kind of have a downward look like this. In other words, I'm not going to make a big profile. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to come down and be less and less of a target. And what is deeply in his narratives and his embodiment in his nervous system is this notion of, if I really fully inhabit my dignity, my need for safety, my request for love and giving love, is that I'm going to be squashed and put down. And I'm avoiding that at all cost. That's a story writ large, but it is in all of us, that conditioned tendency. If I'm doing this, I will normalize this. I will pass it on to my children and everybody else. So first of all, we want to recognize, what is our conditioned tendency, or those reactions?
I want to add a couple of things to that. One of the things that I always really appreciated about somatics and this approach is it doesn't make our conditioned tendencies wrong. Rather, really conditioned tendencies are these inherent, like Richard said, adaptations that are completely wise and intelligent in the context they were formed. You know, was it better to move away? Was it better to shrink? Was it better to push into? Was it better to appease and try to soothe? Right? All of those strategies really come with this package. I often think of this, right, this mind body as 3 billion years of evolutionary wisdom, right? That this really knows how to survive. In many ways, human beings are the most successful animal on the planet. You know, we live in all temperate zones. We're very populous, yeah. But our conditioned tendencies are literally just designed, like Richard said, to bring us more safety, more belonging, more dignity, and really in the best case scenario, all 3 of those. That is really a thriving, right, embodiment to go, I know how to access all 3 of those. The shaping, however, gets generalized in us and then continues well out of the context in which it was formed. And one of the things that's so powerful about a mind-body approach, or really working through the body to change this, is we can understand our conditioned tendencies. Understanding does not inherently change them because they now live in the tissues, because they really now live very deeply in our neuronal pathways and the rest of our nervous systems. Thus, this need to transform more holistically. So with conditioned tendencies and with understanding more of how we respond under pressure, I want to talk a little bit about how we then work with that. And maybe just for a few people in the chat to keep this, you know, us all live in here together, maybe just jot down under some of the pressure that you've been in this time. Do you notice that you move more toward, more automatically away from, more automatically against, right? What are you doing with this level of pressure? Because all of us are dancing with our conditioned tendencies right now. Great. So some people are saying, no, away. I try to move away or avoid things. Others, it's like, right, appease, trying to soothe everything or being a really good diplomat. Away and against, yes, you can have two. We all have all of them. We just tend to get more embodied at one or two because it's what our environment's encouraged. Yeah. All right. Dissociate, right? So checking out, it's like, I just want to get out of here. Okay, good. Thank you all for your honesty there. All right. So how do we work with this? So one of the things we do, especially when CTs are getting like, like I notice every single day, it is poked and prodded in some way because we're in such a different context and because there's so much happening locally and globally. So in a time when there's repeated grabs and repeated pressures, one of the first things we want to do is get to know our conditioned tendencies, how they're living in our bodies. And then the next thing we want to do is what we call blend with them, which is really respecting them on their own terms. So I want to do a little game together here. Let's all just take a fist, make a fist that's fairly firm. Yeah. And we can imagine this is one of our automatic reactions under pressure, right? Often what we're trying to do is manage it, right? Or we're trying to get rid of it, or trying to push it out, right? With enough pressure, this will always pop back up. Hide it, pretend you don't have it. That's a good one. So what I want to ask you to do is with this other hand, this hand might be frustrated with your reactions, wishing you weren't feeling so anxious. So what I want you to do is with this hand, try to pry this hand open from that kind of attitude of like, oh, why are you doing that? I want you to just go away, right? Okay, feel that in your body, feel it between your two hands. And good, again in the chat, just let me know what some of what you noticed. Right, exactly, more tense. Oh, that's great, your breath got higher in your body. Your hands were more at, whatever this is, in discord with each other. Right, tight, you got tighter in your chest, exactly. Your hands squeeze more, okay. I wanted to punch myself. Okay, let's not do that, but thank you very much for saying that. Okay, so you got it, right? This is how the soma works. Here's a contraction. We try to get rid of it. It contracts more. So let's try next round. Same fist. Right, again, the contractions, numbness of our conditioned tendencies. This is just repping that. This time with this hand, get present in this hand, and have a certain quality of curiosity, like a respectful curiosity. And what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to, with this hand, support this fist in exactly the direction it's going. Okay, so you're going to gently wrap your hand around the other and just gently support it in the direction it's going. Right, just feel your body, feel your fist, notice what happens. Okay, good. And again, in the chat, what did you notice with that? It softened, right? Your breath deepened, right? It became more easeful. There was more harmony between your hands, softer. Okay, great. More relaxed. So what is so important here is this is how our mind body works. We have contractions, conditioned tendencies, embodied habits that even though they no longer work, right? Even though aspects of our reactivity no longer serve our leadership, our families, our communities, we do them anyway because they got generalized and embodied a long time ago. If we fight them under enough pressure, they win. Every single time. It's so great just to know kind of the rules of the soma. It's just how this biology works. But when we honor them on their own terms, yeah, when we support the contraction, the direction it's going, make space for it instead of fight with it, it starts to soften and reveal itself. So two things we always want to ask a contraction, a habit, right? This metaphor is, what is it historically that you've been taking care of for me? That is a move of starting to befriend our conditioned tendencies and actually starting to honor them like they're intelligent. They might not be working now, but they were historically very wise. And then the other question we can ask ourselves around our conditioned tendencies as well is, what is it costing me now? Yeah. So in this orientation of blending, we're going to kind of leave it with the fist practice as of today. But this is something that you could take and go with myself, with the places I'm most struggling with tension or numbing. What is it like if I make space for that in a curious way and blend with it inside of myself? What's possible if that softens or as that softens? Yeah. So, all right, blending, one of the key ways we work with, especially repeated grabs to our conditioned tendencies. Can I hand it over to you?
Yeah, and I'd just like to tailgate on that in a minute, is that for me, when Staci says support that, I think that really what I'm doing at that point is that I'm being generous with myself. There may be something that arises that I'm critical of, I don't want to see, I have a complaint and judgment about, and that's a clue to me to go be generous with yourself here. She said, like, make space and soften into be kind. I move toward being kind to myself, and operationally that means there's kind of a softening sense around the big pumps, around the heart and the chest. We're going to move into this distinction of we change, we transform, we're able to modify ourselves and learn and grow and evolve because of the practices that we're in. And we also make the claim in this mind-body work is that we're actually incapable of not practicing. What does that mean? That means we're always taking out this information from the world. We're running it through all of our sense organs here. And we're going, will this make me safer? Will this make me more loved? Will this make me be seen as having dignity? So one of the things we notice when we have the conditioned tendency, we start to build an attitude of support and generosity around it. We say, what practices do I need to let go of so that I'm not always gripped by those historical tendencies? And what new practices do I need to have? And this work is really built on what are the commitment that you have towards your future. We call that a declaration. That's a speech act. That means that instead of thinking of language as just passing information from one head to another, is really what we're doing is we're speaking in a way that we're in action in the moment. Quickly, for example, the officiant says to you, you are now married. The world changes. The officiant says to you, you're divorced. Whoa, your world changes, your community changes, your economics change. Just in that simple statement. You're on the starting line, they say go, boom, you go. So we're talking about really creating and coming to terms with what matters to you in the world. Yes, we have multiple things we care about, but what might be at the head of that list? And we take that and work with that so that we actually see there's a process that we can go back to over and over again through practices, through our language, through networks of people that allows that particular design to be applied to actually anything that you want to bring into the world, anything you want to bring to form in that way. So we asked you to maybe have a pencil and paper. I say that to my kids and they look like I'm in prehistoric times. But anyway, it might be your handheld device or a computer or something.
Oh, there's some pencils out there. That's awesome.
Oh, all right. I don't feel so alone now. Just freely write down, if you said, I am a commitment to, not I'm committed to something, and we use that language, which may seem a little bit awkward to you, as a way of you owning you are the commitment. You are becoming the commitment yourself, and that's how people see you. You're a commitment to building trust with your team. You're a commitment to building more intimacy with your partners. You are a commitment to writing this book etc., etc., etc. So I am a commitment to, and just kind of write freely and put them on the chat.
Let me offer one thing here too. You can start with the question, what do I care about? Right? Who or what do I care about? If that also helps you evoke what is it you want to, put in your rudder. You can think of a declaration as a rudder. Yeah, or the vision you want to keep practicing moving toward. So we'll give you a few seconds here. I'm a commitment to cultivating community. I'm a commitment to joy. I'm a commitment to being a powerful, compelling leader. Great. So there's a number of things coming through the chat here. I'll just share one of mine while we're here. I've held a declaration for about the last 15 years of I'm a commitment to bring the transformative power of practice to serve social and environmental justice movements. That has taken many forms over the last 15 years, but it's a commitment that I can keep steering myself by. Do you have one you want to share?
Every day when I do my practices, I speak two commitments. The first commitment is one that has a shorter horizon of time, and the other one is how I view at this stage my purpose in life. So one of my commitments that is close in horizon of time is that I'm going to finish my next book this year. Now, even as I say that, I feel this little kind of chill going through me, and what are people going to say? So expect that kind of aliveness to be there. And my universal commitment is that to really live in the greater will, really surrender and live into the greater will. That means that maybe it means I'm a little bit tired of myself, and how do I draw on some more powerful, deeper wisdoms to really guide me through this chapter of my life.
So with your declarations, with being a little bit more connected to what it is that you care about, we got to go into practice.
Practice, perfect practice makes perfect. I say that jokingly because I am really a 95% person. Let's get really close to it, get it done, let's move on. And we're going to introduce two practices for you. Really a practice to help you get present, so you know that in your body that you're present now, your body, mind, that you are connected to what matters to you, your commitment, your purpose, and you're open. You're open. You're widening yourself. You're allowing the world to touch you, and you're allowing yourself to touch the world. The second one is a rowing practice. We call it rowing, and it's actually from the Aikido discipline, martial art discipline, traditional Japanese arts, and it's how do you move from center. So if you're able, let yourself stand, clear a little space around you, and we'll join you.
Also, if given your space or just body comfort, you need to practice seated, it's fine to practice seated too.
Okay, good. And like Staci said, if it's uncomfortable, you're not able right now, go ahead and stay seated. We practice in the beginning standing because it's much easier to feel our whole form standing. And what we're going to do is we're going to fundamentally bring our attention to the life of the body. What does that mean? That means moving away from thinking about what's for lunch, what are all those emails piling up, what am I going to do in the rest part of the epidemic here that I'm in, pandemic, and then going to the back in the history of what am I lamenting about, or why did I do better? So if we feel our body, that will help bring us into the present moment. And we're going to start by feeling ourselves along length. We'll then go to width, and then depth, and then the organizing principle. These 4 dimensions are in all living things, from the cells to plants to humans to giraffes. So when we're in our length, let's practice straightening and settling. So feel your soles of your feet, spread your toes, the crown of your head, and that's straightening so the head is over the shoulders over the hips are over the knees, and the knees over the ankles. And we're settling by relaxing our eyes, bringing our attention behind our eyes. If our eyes are fixed, if we're always in our head thinking, they get more and more rigid. What begins to happen is that transfers through the optic nerve to the brain, down through the central nervous system, and we live in a low-grade chronic tension. Eyes are relaxed. You'll notice that is happening if your peripheral vision opens. Your jaw's relaxed, but the hinge, the chin, and your tongue. And for some of you, just let your arms be free. Maybe it's common to cross them in front or back. Just let your arms hang freely down from the shoulder girdle. And again, let's do this. Take a deep breath, bring your shoulders up to your ears. Deep breath, exhale, and let them drop. Feel, allow your breath to move into your abdomen. All of those things, teeth don't have to touch, eyes relaxed. The muscular system is resting on the skeletal system. This all has to do with the design of the human biological form. Pelvic girdle, relaxing those muscles. You might feel your butt cheeks relaxing, the sphincter muscles. The thigh muscles are relaxed, resting on the bones. Knees are soft, and you can feel your feet on the floor. This is the human form. We stand in this way, and we're in our full dignity. Now from the feet, let's work up from the feet. Bring your attention down to your feet. Just feel how they are. If it's hard to, you want to wiggle in there, move around, feel free. Toes are spread. Come up to your knees. Are you balanced left and right in the knees?
In width, so centering in width this way.
And at your hips. Maybe while you're starting to do this, maybe tighten the jaw again, or you squinch the eyes. So just continue sweeping through the body, relaxing. At the rib cage. The shoulders, and your head's on straight. And you can feel your clothes on the outside of your body. You can actually extend your attention. Energy follows attention to the clothes on the outside of your body. If you're with somebody else in the room, can you feel them? Or can you feel the plants in your room? Or your cat or your dog? Your goldfish, parakeet, what other living forms are there? Length, we're connected to our moral and spiritual vision with our feet on the floor. Horizontal plane, we're connecting to the world and other beings in the world. Now let's go to our depth. So let's start in the whole back body, which we often forget with so many senses in front and holding our handheld devices in front. Come back and settle back into yourself. Whole backs of the legs, the hips. There's 2 long muscles next to the spine. Relaxing back into yourself. Most of you have a big dinosaur tail. Now bring your attention through your torso, coming out to the front. The whole ventral side is open. Your eyes are facing forward. So in our depth, we have our history, our teachers, those who cared for us, the way we've healed ourselves, the way we've contributed to the world. In front, we're monitoring what is the best possible future for us, and how can I meet that with both a skilled action and a very open heart. Now, put your left thumb in your belly button and rest your palm just below that. Doesn't matter about the left or right, but what I want you to do is to feel the sensation of the hand in the belly. Feel the sensation of the belly as it touches the hand. That's your center of gravity. Now go ahead and drop your hand, but keep your attention dropped. And that commitment that you had, that you wrote down, I am a commitment to, feel, sense, or imagine that you're seeing that right at your center. That's your North Star. That's your guiding light. Check by doing this very short centering practice, how did it shift your mood? How did it shift any images coming up? How did it shift how you feel? Now let's put our left foot forward, right foot's back. There's about a width difference between like railroad tracks. Right foot is pointing to 2 o'clock, and we're going to row, we're going to move from center. So keeping this vertical line, keeping yourself over your center of power, move the center forward. Take these oars right here, like you're standing rowing, and row back, hands to the hips. Forward, back, forward, back. This is like you're rowing for your commitment. You're rowing for those that can't row. In breath, out breath, engaging your ground, your legs, your feet. When I say change, bring your right foot next to your left foot and take your left foot back and keep rowing. Don't think about it, just trust your body. And change. In that change, we want to drop. We're practicing to embody in our nervous system, or your spirit, if you will, that under transition or change, we deepen. We drop into ourselves. We don't rise up in all those waves. And change. And change every time. And hold. Let's just stand for 1 second here and just feel. The breath is running a little bit more, let it run. There's more sensation parts of your body, just being with that, making the blend with that, as Staci said. Thank you for being in practice together. Go ahead and take a seat.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for practicing. We really want to encourage you. I know we're just introducing this tonight. Some of you who are students know this practice, but really want to invite you that centering practice and that rowing, that you could start your day with that, you could end your day with that. Really our orientation is, what is it to pause and practice centering 5 times a day? That length with depth, reminding ourselves of what's most important to us in our commitment. And with that rowing, especially with so much change, it is such a way to practice centering amidst change, right? Centering amidst chaos, which is what it's like for some of us. So we wanted to just pivot here, having given you a little bit of an introduction to the core of our work, some understanding of how we respond under pressure when there's so much sustained pressure, and then how we introduce new practices. So this is a kind of taster of the broader orientation of the work. And here at Strozzi Institute, we've been really looking at what can we contribute and what can we offer in this time, given the increased pressure. And we have decided for the first time to do an entire course online. And, it's good. It's a good pivot for us too, to really meet folks' needs of accessibility, of shelter in place, of just how disrupted so many of our baseline economics are. So we've created a program called the Embodied Leadership Core. It is going to be 10 sessions, 15 hours over those 10 sessions. And we're going to drop actually into the chat right now a link. And for those of you who can open the link, you can see actually more detail about what we're actually planning through those 10 sessions. If you can't open the link, it's fine. I'm going to talk us through it a little bit. So in this program, we really together committed of how can we bring the core distinctions online? How can we bring practices, a practice to each session, one can build upon the next, some readings and reflections, and fundamentally to orient inside of this pandemic really as an opportunity to reflect again on what we most care about, to really craft and go, how do I want to return when there's not really a normal to return to? How do I want to guide myself? What difference do I want to make? And then how do I build that as an embodied set of skills and competencies, as well as give ourselves some relief as we get to know our conditioned tendencies and how to work with them, that they won't be so loud. So in the chat, you'll see the Embodied Leadership Core. You can click on that. And then I just want to take us for a minute, if you can get there. I'm going to get there with you to the sessions. And we'll just take a few minutes so we can highlight, if you want to join the program, what you would get out of that. So in session one, we'll really go deeper into what is embodied leadership, kind of the who, what, and how of it. You'll get to start to build a learning and a practice community. Practicing loves partnership. So being in a community of practice makes a big difference. So we'll dive into really how does embodied transformation work in that first session. The second and third sessions will be really looking deeply at what is your declaration. And we can look at those in multiple contexts, but what do you deeply care about? How do you access what you care about through the felt senses, and not necessarily an inherited declaration, right? Many of us inherit declarations of who we think we should be or what we should be doing, rather than going, wait, what do I care about? Who am I at this age and phase of life? So we'll be digging into declarations at multiple levels, and then we'll be looking at how do we embody our declarations. So you got a taste of that today with centering practice, where the last thing we center on is our declaration. Really, we want to build that into our nervous system. We want to embody what we care about, so that under pressure with enough practice, what we can act from is what we care about, rather than react from, again, our historical adaptations.
Let me add on there that what we've seen over decades of doing this is that anecdotally, and how we loosely track this, that we have about a 93 to 95% success rate for people in fulfilling on their commitments. Sometimes, especially if they'll go through the series of courses and then get coaching. But sometimes that'll happen almost immediately, and sometimes we'll get something coming across our desk 3-4 years later and say, here's my book. Now I have a baby. Now I'm married. Now I got the promotion. And what we've seen about it is that if we really organize ourselves and our intent in a way, is that it's not rocket science. We can bring forth the world we long for.
One of my favorites, I'm going to tell real quick, was a woman who at the beginning of a course said, I'm a commitment to having 2 children by the end of this year. And she did. She had 2 kids 8 months later. Yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, that was very inspiring. That's a very big commitment. So, okay, moving on. Session 4, conditioned tendencies are friends. They are with us. They will always be with us. We might as well get into a very skillful relationship with them because they're not going anywhere. So conditioned tendencies, how are they intelligent adaptations? Where are they getting in the way because they generalized and are getting used in contexts where they don't actually help or make any sense anymore? And really, what are practices and what are processes to work with and begin to honor them, and also let them start to move and shift and open in the tissue so they're not so locked in. They're really driven from the older parts of the brain, the deeper part of the nervous system, and they live in the tissues. Somatics understands that very deeply, and that's the place from which we work with them rather than at the thinking level alone. Session 5, we're gonna really widen our view. And we call this sites of shaping, but really looking at how different levels of our experience, from the individual to the family, to the community, to the institutional and social, how those all shape us. Yeah, and again, I think we're getting a very, very strong taste of it with the pandemic that we are going through globally together, and we'll continue to, and till we work our way out. And then what are our cares and concerns also at that level? Like, what's important to me at work? Work might not hold all my commitments. I might need to then go, no, I have some commitments that are really about community or social. Yeah, so we look at ourselves more holistically and also understand our shaping and other people's shaping more holistically. So that'll be session 5. Session 6 and session 7 are about what we call somatic opening. And somatic opening is that core transformative process where what's embodied starts to pivot and starts to change. So it's both through that work with the conditioned tendencies, the work with new practices. Literally, we start to morph. Yeah. So who I am, what it is I embody, starts to pivot and open and shift more and more toward what I care about, who I'm wanting to become, right? Getting in some ways updated with ourselves. So let me just finish my sentence and then I'll hand it over. So the first one's really physiologically what's happening. We'll work with processes there. And then what we continually see is inside of contractions or things that have been held in us for long periods of time is also an emotional process, right? The history stored in the body. And so we'll work on increasing our emotional intelligence and really understanding how we can make space for a very wide emotional range without reacting or cutting off certain emotions as the ones we're not supposed to have.
In the somatic opening, which is, it's as Staci said, it's like a morphine, or a place where a snake might be shedding its skin. Is that we're starting to release these old habits that we have, these old behaviors that we have, and we maybe haven't reached the next place, but inside of that, it's a really vast, wide ocean in that place. And many people will start to experience that as really a deep spiritual awakening for them, or maybe even the first spiritual awakening in which they are beginning to touch a certain kind of wisdom or intelligence that comes out of the mind-body continuum that informs them of even greater possibilities and way to achieve them. It's exciting.
After somatic opening, we'll be heading into 3 sessions near the end that are really about new skills and new skills building. And always when we say new skills, we mean new embodied choices. Under pressure, I can make a new choice, right? Through how I relate, how I be, and how I act. So session 8 is about giving and receiving what we call somatic assessments. And that means, you know, most of the time we're always thinking, how am I doing? And we're making assessments. Here's how I think that person is doing. And we want to really bring that to a conscious process. So we learn to give and receive, to invite and to offer feedback based on what it is other people care about. Right? What I love about somatic assessments is the first question is, what do you care about? What's your commitment? Right? And then we can actually become contributors to each other's growth and transformation rather than be each other's critiquers, which doesn't go that well. Rhythm of action is about working together. And again, that can be on the level of coordinating in this time at work, at family, with extended family. But rhythm of action will give a model of how we get aligned in what we most care about and how we want it to look a month, 6 months, a year from now. And then embodied practices of how do we make requests? How do we make offers? How do we make promises? How do we have really centered boundaries and have that be clean? Yeah, those are the things we'll dive into there. And then session 10 is deepening practice. You know, we want to make sure you all leave this course having key practices that are directly lined up with your declarations and what matters to you. So some of you might be like, one of my practices is centered boundaries and centered requests, along with rowing. That those are the practices that serve the embodiment of your declaration. And for others of you, they'll be different than that. So we will have been exposed to a lot of different practices throughout the 10 sessions, and we'll deepen into those practices so we really leave you with those going forward, okay? So there it is. There it is. And we kind of, while we've done many things on Zoom, this is really our time to take the opportunity to pivot and make what we're doing accessible to as many people as possible, especially given the collective pressure that we're facing. So the last thing I want to tell you is because Zoom formats can hold a lot of people, we also are going to put 3 coaching circles into the program that are going to be much, much smaller groups where you'll be with a teacher, you'll be with a coach, and you'll get to deepen in with a small group about what's your declaration and get feedback. You'll get to deepen in around like, here's what I'm noticing about my conditioned tendencies. Can you talk to me about that? Yeah, so we'll have these opportunities to deepen in and get much more small group attention. Yeah, okay. So if this calls you, if this feels like, oh, this is the opportunity that will serve me in this COVID moment, this is the way that I want to learn with a practice community to really use this time as an opening, really, as an opening for growth, for learning, for contribution, please join us. If you scroll down a little bit more on the page, if that's where you're at, you'll see that we're offering 2 payment options. We're just very aware that some people are under financial stress right now. So we offer 2 payment options you can check out there. And then we're also really wanting to offer $100 off enrollment bonus if you enroll before May 15th. So you have a full week to decide, this is a thing for me, compel some of your neighbors into it. When you have your, cocktail 5 p.m. stoop. I know so many people who are doing that in cities. It's kind of amazing. But we really wanted to also give $100 off for those of you who enroll before May 15th. It also helps us as we're designing this, get a good sense of like how many people, coaches, how we're orienting on our end. So that it's all online. So again, if you're not on the phone, you can just go to our website. It's right there. If you are, it's in the chat. And we just really look forward to seeing those of you who are called to doing that, to practicing together and to using this time as well as we can. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks for joining us in practice today. Really appreciate seeing all of you. Thanks for your active chat interaction. And we really look forward to seeing you.
Good job.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, everyone.